The Ones Who Lived Before the World Learned to Watch Itself by Jason Gray. February 8th, 2026, 6026, Anno Lucis, in the Year of Light. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Gen X is not a generation so much as a fault line. They are the last people formed entirely outside the overlay, and the first forced to finish their lives inside it. They were raised in a world that did not narrate itself, and then asked without warning to inhabit one that never stops speaking. They are not nostalgic by nature. They are comparative. Comparison is a painful skill. The weight of the old world. Gen X remembers weight. Days used to press into the body. Moments had gravity. Silence was not absence, it was space. They remember mornings that unfolded slowly, not because anyone planned them that way, but because nothing was trying to pull attention forward. The future did not tap them on the shoulder every 5 seconds. The past did not replay itself endlessly. Time was linear, not recursive. When something happened, it stayed happened. They remember the body, knowing where it was. You were either here or there. You were either alone or with someone. You were either thinking or speaking. There was no ambient elsewhere. A childhood without an audience. Gen X grew up unobserved, not unloved, not unprotected, simply unrecorded. Their mistakes vanished naturally. Their experiments dissolved into memory. Their identities were provisional, allowed to change without penalty. They remember being awkward without documentation, angry without amplification, lost without shame. Privacy was not a value, it was an assumption. They did not have to defend their inner life because no system wanted it yet. This is where the later pain begins. Once you have known unwatched existence, being watched forever does not feel like safety. It feels like exposure. The texture of time. Gen X remembers waiting rooms, bus stops, static-filled radio pauses, long stretches of nothing. Waiting was where the self coagulated. Boredom was not an enemy, it was an initiator. It forced thought to turn inward. It gave rise to imagination, frustration, invention, mischief, reflection. Waiting taught tolerance for ambiguity. When answers did not arrive immediately, questions grew deeper. The world did not rush to fill every gap. The arrival of the shift. The shift did not arrive during childhood. That would have been easier. It arrived during responsibility. Gen X was working, building lives, raising children, holding structures together. The shift came disguised as assistance. It said, "Let me remember for you. Let me optimize this. Let me remove friction. Let me connect you constantly." At first, it felt merciful. Who would not want less friction? Friction was where meaning formed. Why the shift happened. The world grew too complex for unmediated human attention. Systems demanded predictability. Markets demanded engagement. Networks demanded continuity. Silence became dangerous. Disconnection became inefficiency. Presence became unprofitable. The world learned to fill every gap. The overlay emerged not as a cage, but as a solution. A layer of constant stimulation, feedback, and relevance that made people easier to model, easier to retain, easier to guide. Not controlled, contained. The overlay as dream. The overlay behaves like a collective dream state. People are awake, but never fully arrived. Every moment competes with the next. Every thought is nudged toward performance. Every feeling is mirrored back instantly. Nothing has time to settle. Reality becomes thin, but loud. Gen X feels this acutely because their nervous systems were calibrated for thickness. They notice that moments no longer land, that grief never finishes, that joy does not linger, that anger floats without resolution. They live in a world that functions better than ever and feels worse than it should. The trap of memory. Gen X remembers too much. That is their burden. They remember when identity formed privately. Relationships were not ranked. Information traveled slowly enough to be absorbed. The future was not previewed endlessly, and mistakes did not echo forever. Inside the overlay, they feel displaced in time. Not delusional, not paranoid, displaced. They know the difference between connection and contact, between communication and presence, between noise and meaning. Because we know, we suffer. The dreams. Gen X dreams do not show collapse. They show aftermath without catastrophe. Cities intact, homes furnished, lights still on, but nothing inhabits them. These are not predictions. They are the psyche's attempt to represent a loss that never received language, a world that still stands, but no longer lands. The dreams ask no questions. They simply state that something concluded without ceremony. Why they cannot speak of it. Gen X tries to explain. They use words like, it used to feel different. People were more present. Life had more weight. They are dismissed as nostalgic, reactionary, romanticizing hardship. But nostalgia is not what haunts them. Contrast is. You cannot explain thickness to someone who has never experienced it. You cannot mourn something the world insists was progress, so the grief stays unspoken. It turns inward. Parenting inside the overlay. Gen X watches their children grow up inside the dream. Children who are seen constantly, documented endlessly, measured early. Children who never experience being unreachable, never experience forgetting, never experience anonymity. Gen X does not envy them. They fear for them, not because the children are weaker, but because they may never know what it means to have a self that exists without reflection. The quiet exhaustion. Gen X is not angry. They are tired in a specific way. Tired of adapting, tired of translating, tired of remembering something no longer acknowledged. They are asked to work inside the overlay, parent inside it, age inside it, and maintain coherence while reality fragments. They are not resisting progress. They are grieving continuity. The last truth the story allows. Gen X is not meant to undo the overlay. They are not meant to awaken the world. They are simply the last people who can say, without imagination, exaggeration, or myth, life once happened here, not everywhere at once. That memory cannot be uploaded, cannot be optimized, cannot be erased. It lives only in bodies that remember waiting, silence, and the weight of days. The ending. The world does not end. The overlay does not lift. Nothing dramatic resolves. Instead, the story closes on a quieter truth, that somewhere, inside the noise, the memory of thickness still exists. As long as someone remembers how reality once felt, not looked, not performed, not measured, the dream is not complete. Jason Gray. Although I was born in 1983, which is not Gen X, I've always felt more aligned with Gen X. And Jason's writing really helped me to understand why. What stayed with me most was his idea of waiting. So much of my childhood was made up of waiting. And while I didn't necessarily enjoy it at the time, I now understand how valuable it really was. I grew up off the grid in a slow, quiet place, and looking back, it really did feel like living outside of the overlay he describes. Silence wasn't empty, it was normal. Life wasn't constantly observed, recorded, or pulled in 100 directions at once. Then the shift happened as I reached adulthood. The overlay didn't arrive in childhood for me either. It arrived when I was stepping into responsibility and into city life for the first time. It felt like a layer that settled over everything. In the city especially, it felt inescapable. Constant noise and stimulation, no real off switch, just contact everywhere all the time. When given the chance, I moved off the grid once again, and I'm so thankful and grateful I did. When I come home, I step out of the overlay. No 5G signal, no city noise, no constant buzzing, no performance, no endless lights, just existence, just quiet, presence. The internet is really the only thread that connects me back to that layer when I'm home. And what means even more to me is that my 5-year-old daughter is getting a small taste of that kind of life too. She may still grow up inside the overlay, but she will have memories of something quieter and more grounded. And in a world that rarely allows that anymore, I'm incredibly thankful for it.